Hello and welcome to this edition of Inside Tacoma. I'm your host, Randall Lewis. Our guest for our conversation today, Pierce County Assessor Treasurer Mike Lonergan. Welcome back.
Well, good to be back.
It's been a while since you've been here with us, and you used to be kind of a regular because all those years on the Tacoma City Council.
That's right.
Before you decided to come out of retirement to do something else. So let me start out by that. We don't ever read about the assessor's office anymore, and we used to all the time. It was in the newspaper all the time before, and then you kind of ran to change that. So apparently you've succeeded in changing that because we never read about the assessor's office anymore.
That's true. Well, it's history now because I've been in here 6 years, but 6 years ago it was a really rough time particularly for the people who worked in the assessor treasurer's office here in Pierce County. We had an elected individual, came out of that ranked choice voting, who really wasn't a good boss and turned out not to really be a good public official. And so he was voted out, but my campaign slogan was, "Let's fix this." And that kind of resonated with people. So here I am, and that was my job, to kind of restore order and even, I'm going to say, post-traumatic stress among some of the staff members had to be dealt with. Yeah. And it is a much better day now. And yes, whatever we have in the paper might be about the property values going up and it's time to pay your taxes and those kind of things, which we want to inform the public. But no bad news coming out of the assessor treasurer's office.
All right. Well, that is good when government is supposed to not make news except for the routine things. It's not a good thing when government generates extra news coverage. So that means usually something's gone haywire in some agency or some department. So it's a good thing that's been fixed because that's an important part of the function of government. You collect the property taxes on behalf of every other government agency in Pierce County.
Right.
And so let's spend a little time on that. Tacoma is the largest city in Pierce County, but it's just a fraction of the land of Pierce County. So what we've read that property values go up. I certainly noticed my property value went up when I got my little green postcard from you earlier in the year. But let's talk about what's actually happening on the ground in Tacoma.
Sure. Well, I looked this up, Randy, because I thought you might ask that question. So from 2016 to 2017, Tacoma values went up about 11%, from the average home in Tacoma being worth $230,000 to $263,000. Then from 27 to the 2018 values, we went up another 13%, from $263,000 to now we're right at $300,000 value for the average home, half worth more, half worth less, here in the city of Tacoma.
Now, I don't know if you went back in time and looked at that, but I have this tendency to play with things on my computer. So I've tracked these on a chart over the years of what my house has been valued at, what I paid for property taxes. I know that ours finally, with this year's postcard from you, the value went up to above where it was before the recession in 2009 or 2008, because we were pretty high then, and then it just fell off a cliff in Pierce County, and then the slow up, we're back up to where we were back then, which makes, of course, people wonder, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next time? But we have to keep in mind that the recession, which people have called the Great Recession, was much deeper, much longer than any we'd seen in a long, long time since the Great Depression.
And it definitely was a housing bubble, too. Those values had gotten unsupportably high for a variety of reasons. There were problems in the banking industry, turning out mortgages that maybe shouldn't have been made. And so hopefully those safeguards that have been put in place will prevent that kind of a drastic drop. But we are seeing right now a leveling off of values. We only publish new values for every property in the county once a year, which is a big enough job, so we're not tracking them day by day, but we have over 300,000 properties to revalue each and every year.
All right. And I know you do a lot of the evaluations each year via a computer-generated model that you use, but you also do physical inspections of some of the properties each year.
Indeed. And we just finished Tacoma, all of Tacoma, except for Northeast, which will come in a different year. but
okay.
It's just
That's
the way
my neighborhood. So
we'll get you next year.
Okay, all right. Okay.
And I mean that in a very positive way.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay, we'll take care of you next year. But we are looking at the values, and so we re-examine what is the current condition of each home. We take a picture of it, walk around. We don't go into the homes in most cases. When there's new construction, we're in the home taking a look at that. But we're just seeing, has a view that you used to have gone away? If so, we should lower the value because there's value in a view, or vice versa.
Right.
And then again, has the house been fixed up where it could sell for more? The whole idea is to get the right number, not necessarily a higher number, which some people think we're trying to get it just as high as we can, but we're trying to match what is the market value of that property. What could it sell for now?
Okay. So I assume that because you did most of Tacoma physical inspections, that we'll see some adjustments, not necessarily always higher, but more realistic, or will people see some adjustments to what they've been seeing over the last 6 years prior to the physical inspection?
You do we do it on a 6-year cycle that we cover the whole county. So now that we've done Tacoma, we're out in Lakewood, University Place, Steilacoom area this year. And yes, when we do that physical inspection, you tend to see a little more adjustment both ways. A lot of times we find that something isn't what it used to be, hasn't been kept up, and so really the value does go down. And then we do look, as you mentioned, each year we're looking by neighborhoods, looking at actual sales. What are 3-bedroom, 2-bath, single-story houses going for in this neighborhood, and kind of basing it on that.
Okay. Now, the other question that frequently comes up, when people talk about property taxes, is that how we compare here in Tacoma and Pierce County to King County. And there's property values are considerably higher.
Much higher.
In King County. And I always want to, when you've been on here before, I know we've talked about this, and I think it's fair to do that again because people need to understand there's reasons why that's the case. And some of it's public policy decisions that people in Pierce County or leaders in Pierce County have made over decades of time. It's decisions that regarding locations of facilities. There's all sorts of reasons why King County's property values are much higher than Pierce County's, aren't there?
Yes, the values are higher. Of course, there is a demand for living there. Has to do with high wage jobs in the areas. The other thing that tends to make a difference between Pierce and King County's tax rates are lower in general than Pierce County's. The dollars per thousand that you pay of property tax. And a reason is because of things like Amazon and Boeing and Microsoft and Safeco, corporate headquarters. Business and industry pays exactly the same tax rate as the homeowner pays. And vacant land pays at the same rate. It's all the same rate in a given area, such as the city of Tacoma, Tacoma School District, and so forth. So there, with much higher values and much more commercial and industrial property to tax, the rates can be lower and you can generate a ton more money.
Right. So it's all about that, about the kinds of businesses that have located there versus what have located here. Despite everybody's best efforts to get business here, King County's been more successful at that over the years. Either happenstance or in the case of places like Microsoft, we know that, well, just because Bill Gates and Paul Allen were from Seattle. That's why they wanted their business to be back in Seattle and not in Albuquerque where it was actually founded.
And we have a piece of Boeing out at Frederickson. Right. We're glad to have that, but
right.
we wish we had more.
Right, and as big as King County is physically, it has less publicly owned and non-taxed land than Pierce County does. Pierce County has a lot of non-taxed land, which also has some impact on what kind of room we have for business, high-tax businesses that could pay.
Exactly. I mean, the military base is a big example of that. But also, when we have University of Puget Sound, we have the hospitals. These are nonprofits. We have the things we think of as nonprofits, the charitable organizations, the churches. These are all exempt from property tax. So if you're in a community that has a lot of that, and not to mention Mount Rainier National Park and other governmental-owned facilities that don't pay tax, it puts more of a burden on either the residents or the commercial. And that's where I like to say we need more business in Pierce County. It will have the effect of lowering your tax rate as an individual homeowner.
Right. And so, and because all of those things you mentioned are things we would not really want to give up. We don't want to give up JBLM. It has thousands of jobs which pay other kinds of benefits. We would never give up Mount Rainier National Park or our Tacoma's two largest employers, which happen to be those two hospitals.
That's right.
And all those things are wonderful assets to the community, but they do have an impact for public policy reasons on other things we do.
Exactly. And Tacoma, when talking about tax rates, Tacoma actually has a higher tax rate than some of the other communities in Pierce County. And an example would be you do go across the bridge, and in Gig Harbor, property values are much higher. The average home is much higher value, and so their rate is lower, and it's considerably lower. Here in Tacoma this year, people are paying $15.76 per $1,000 value of their home. That averages out for the average home that we talked about in Tacoma. It's $4,100 in property tax. Over there, in Gig Harbor, with a $10 or $11 tax rate, they will generate more per house than we do because the house values are much higher than that $300,000 average here.
Right. And let's also talk about where that money goes, because you are the tax collector for lots of governments, every government in Pierce County, and for property taxes. And of that $15, the city of Tacoma actually gets about $4 of that, right?
Yeah, it's $3.31 per thousand going to the city. That adds up. It's $77 million into the city's budget each year. But I used to have that question when I was a city councilman. Someone would call up and say, I pay $4,000 a year property tax. All I want is a street light out in front of my house. And the city's getting that $4,000 every year. And well, no, the city isn't getting that $4,000 every year. We're getting $3.31 per $1,000 value. So that might be $1,000 to the city. And that's a reality. The schools, and it's been so much in the news, I would imagine most of your viewers know this by now, the combination of the local school levies and bond issues, plus the state school levies, and there now are two. They used to only have one, but they added one because of the McCleary court case. That combination is the bulk of your property tax. Over half of the property tax we collect is going to the schools.
Right, through the state or through directly. And then I think Tacoma also has a 50-cent EMS levy that is a property tax.
That's right.
Dedicated to that. And then we have the oldest metropolitan park district in the state of Washington, which is also a taxing entity.
So it's $1.50 per thousand that people who don't have a separate park district are not paying. There are cities that are trying to provide parks out of their own general fund revenue. Right. And here we have that separate entity which gives us tremendous parks and community centers and so forth, but it's being paid for. They've created now metropolitan park districts over on the peninsula. They have two of them over there that tax at a somewhat lower rate, but they don't have Point Defiance and so forth. Right.
And again, that's one of those public policy decisions that the voters created that park district because they wanted to protect parks and have, and there's no question, if you look at cities like Tacoma around the state, we have a park district. We have parks that are not comparable. They're much better. They're much bigger. They're more frequent. There's things like community centers that lots of cities our size do not have, simply because in those cities parks compete against police and fire for budget numbers, and they probably lose out on those battles most of the time.
Well, and the flip side of that is kind of interesting because Pierce County has a library district that can tax up to 50 cents per thousand. Their tax has eroded as values have gone up. The rates tend to go down because of the 101% legal limit of each taxing entity be it the city, the libraries, fire districts, whoever, they're all under that limit. So the county libraries are paid for separately from the general fund. We're here in the city of Tacoma, we're trying to operate libraries out of the general fund. So there are examples where there are specific taxing districts. Fire district's another great example that tax quite a bit, actually, in the rural areas and the suburban areas where, again, Tacoma, other than that 50-cent emergency medical service levy, is paying for that all out of the general fund.
Right. So it's all these various choices that people make that it's a lot more complicated. And I know when people get mad about property taxes because everybody pays it. It's one of the taxes everybody pays. But when you start explaining the reasons why, you can see the eyes glaze over pretty quickly because it's not a simple tax to explain to people.
And that's probably the number one mistake a lot of people make. They do oversimplify it. I send a little green card out that says the value of your property went up 13%, and people immediately jump to the conclusion, oh great, he's raising my taxes next year 13%. Right. And that isn't true. We have that 101% limit I mentioned. There are legal limits on all the taxes, often can be overcome by a vote of the people. You can lift the lid, you can have special levies for various things, but it's a vote of the people. Almost half, about 47% of the property tax we pay is because of a vote of the people to tax themselves in a district.
Wow. Okay, that's a good statistic to know. And we also should make sure we give people a chance to know that when they get their valuation from you, especially now in Tacoma, where most of Tacoma's had their adjustments because they've had physical inspection, if they disagree, there's a process that they can follow with your office to say, no, you blew it here. This is actually should be only worth this much.
It's an important part of the whole system. So the catchphrase that assessors use here and around the country is fair and equitable. We're really trying to figure out how to fairly divide the tax pie among each household, not to get the most we can out of each person, but to make sure that they're paying their fair share based upon the value of their property. So if you were to get the green card from me and it says your house is worth $327,000 and you believe I could not possibly sell my house for that. My house is worth maybe $275,000 tops. Well, that's the time to appeal. And we allow here in Pierce County 60 days from the time you get that notice to appeal, or 60 days from the time I send the notice. Actually, we have to give the post office a couple days there, but you have that 60 days to appeal, not to me, but to the Board of Equalization. So a jury of your peers, so to speak, appointed individuals who sit in their own separate hearing room down at the county annex, and they would hear those appeals. And you can't just say, I think it's too high, but if you can come up with comparable examples of recent sales, they will take a look at that. Gives our staff a chance too, when you appeal, to look at it. And we do, in about a third of the cases, stipulate before it even goes to the board. We say, oh, we were not aware that you lost your view, for example, or we thought that you had a full basement. You're showing us you do not have a full basement. We will reduce the value accordingly.
Yeah, okay. So I want to make sure that people understand that. Also, when they appeal, your office also gets to go in and justify its findings.
Right.
And you're saying about a third of the time you find the voter or the homeowner has given you information you didn't have.
That's
and
correct.
A third of the time the appeal is dismissed because you stipulate it for a lower number.
Right.
Okay, so if it goes all the way through the process, the board has to vote. How many people are on the board?
Well, there's 5.
5 people. Appointed by whom?
Well, it's by the executive and confirmed by the county council.
Okay, so it's not your office.
No.
These people are all selected by a different elected official and then confirmed by even more elected officials. Okay. And they serve for a term of some kind?
And I'm not sure. I think it's a 4-year term. In addition to that, I should mention, if someone isn't happy with their ruling, say, well, they didn't understand. It was more complex than they could follow, or whatever that you might say. There's the State Board of Tax Appeals. there's an appeal of the appeal. And all of this is at no cost. This has been kicked around. Other states do charge money in many cases to make an appeal. Well, you gotta pay $50 or $100 to appeal. We don't do that. We absorb the cost as government because it's part of making sure we've got that fair and equitable number.
All right. Now, we were talking before the show, and you mentioned that almost the entire world has property taxes.
That's right.
Certainly all 50 states have property taxes, and you are involved in national associations of property assessors. Mm-hmm. And so I'm curious as to things you've learned about, I mean, people can, and frequently do, quibble about how Washington State taxes property all one class. There's one rate, as you mentioned, for every class, for a class of property. There's the various caps. We've made it very convoluted and hard to explain. And people misunderstand your 13% increase in value as 13% increase in taxes.
No.
All these kinds of things. But what are some of the weird things you've learned from the way other states do it? We can't be the only state that has odd property taxes.
Well, I will say this. I just came a few weeks ago from the International Association of Assessing Officers. We had a convention in Minneapolis. So it's people mainly from U.S. and Canada, but some from, I've met people from Ireland and other countries of the world. I believe Washington State really ranks high in the way we do things. The legislature passes the laws, the State Department of Revenue enforces or standardizes those for all the counties, and then the county assessors have a lot of judgment that is applied in each specific case. But I talked to a fellow from, an assessor from New York, and Yonkers, New York, I believe it was, and he was very interested in finding ways to update the inspection of his properties because he had properties that had not been physically looked at since 1954.
Wow.
And I said, well, you must get a lot of appeals because there's bad information. Obviously, things have changed in a half a century from the way they were, and you are not up to date in many cases. And he said, oh, no, we don't get that many appeals. And he gave me a number that is 10 times the rate of appeals we have here in Pierce County. And he thought that was a really good number for the state of New York. So yes, there are differences. The other very strange thing, when people have felt taxes get too high, they've introduced various measures that I think introduce unfairness into the system. And the biggest example is the Prop 13 down in California, where the value can be frozen for as many years as you own your house. The value doesn't go up 11 or 13% a year. It just stays the same, and you're taxed on that basis until the day you do sell your house, and then it jumps up to whatever the new value is. And, you know, I once lived in Seattle. I had a house there that was worth $36,000 that I looked it up the other day, and, you know, it's worth more than 10 times what it was when I lived there. What if I had lived there the whole time and I was still at $36,000? How is that fair to my next door neighbor who just moved in?
Right. And when we were mentioning this, I just thought the same thing about my wife and I have lived in our house for 25 years. And we are the longest continuing homeowner in our block. So everybody's house around us would be valued far higher than ours, just for the fact that we haven't bothered to move.
So I really think that Washington State, and of course I'm very proud of my staff here in Pierce County, we have 76 people that do a variety of jobs. They have to map every single property in the county, and as they're changed with subdivisions and so forth, we change that, keep it all up to date. The ownership of each property, as that changes, so we build the right people for it. We mentioned appeals and the senior and disabled exemptions, other types of exempt property, and then about half of the team are the people who get in the little white county cars and do go out and physically inspect each and every property. And to find out there are states where that's not even being done on a regular basis, I feel pretty good about what we have here.
Right, or haven't been done for 50 years. I mean, that's pretty amazing. And the other thing that I've remarked about before is how much of this is all online and fairly easily accessible to anybody who's curious about, you know, what the property down the street might be valued at, because they wonder what they're doing in that house. You can go look that up as long as you know the parcel number and even the address.
You can look it up by street address as well. And we've added just recently the sketches that we have. We have to do a sketch. We do it digitally now. There was a time we did it by hand, but a digital sketch of each and every property. And you can look at that and make sure we've got it right. Do we have the right square footage? Is one of the hard ones, particularly in the north end of Tacoma, is there really a second story there, or is that just an attic? Is it like a story and a half? It depends if that's living space or not, how valuable it is, obviously. So check the sketch and make sure we got it right.
Okay. Now, some of the questions that we've talked about here today is that the vote of the people can override some of these caps on taxes, either through special levies or levy lid lifts. Do people blame your office for those things when they happen?
Oh, sure.
Oh, okay.
Of course, the interesting thing, we have the only assessor-treasurer's office in the state. The other 38 counties have a separate assessor and treasurer. So we place the values on the property, but we also send out the tax bills and deal with the collection of the funds, which is well over $1 billion a year for all those taxing districts. Again, the city doesn't get most of it. The county itself doesn't get most of it either. I've had people say, what does the county do with that $1 billion? No, it's the schools, fire districts, parks, and so forth. But the function that we have causes people to look to us, and my name is on it, so what are you doing? Using a dartboard to determine my taxes? And hopefully, by going to our website, people can see the process. We do explain it there. And again, should they possibly qualify for an exemption, anybody over age 61 or anyone fully disabled whose household income is under $40,000 can get an exemption from all the voted taxes. And at lower levels of income than that, you get even more exemption. But let's keep it simple and say, if your gross household income is under $40,000 and you're over 61, you really ought to contact our office and see if you can be relieved of any voted levies.
And when was the last time that 40,000 income limit was checked?
Just about 4 years ago, we raised it from 35,000 to 40. And interestingly, we will have a bill sponsored by the assessors in the legislature this session that it's a little more complicated, but much more fair. It would base the exemption income limit on the median income in each county. Because you can imagine, compared to Asotin County or Pacific County, some of the poorer counties in the state, compared to King County or Snohomish County, 40,000 is not the same. So they're saying we're in a county where the average income is $40,000, and that's the exemption level. So we're trying to make it more fair. For Pierce County, if this passes, it would raise it up a little bit from the 40,000. It would be maybe in the mid-40s for a new limit. And then every 5 years, they would readjust this to rounded figures so it doesn't get overly complex that you qualify this year but not next year, and then the year following you're back in. It would be done on a more orderly basis.
All right. Well, and with that, we are out of time. But I really appreciate you being here today. We've had a lot of information on the screen about how people can contact you.
I would look forward to hearing from them.
All right. Thank you. Our guest has been Pierce County Assessor Treasurer Mike Lonergan. We look forward to seeing you next time here on Inside Tacoma.